Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Thursday, November the 26th, Pope Francis reminds us that Advent has begun with a message of support for a seasonal initiative launched by a radio station.
Ethiopia declares assault on the capital of Tigray state.
And the Pope prays for star football player Diego Armando Maradona and recalls his meetings with him in 2014. In the Vatican, I'm Linda Bordoni.
And I'm Father Benedict Mayaki. Pope Francis today sent his support for an ecologically minded Advent initiative broadcast by a Catholic radio station in northern Italy. In a short video message, the Pope invited people around the world to take part in the program to prepare to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Devin Watkins has more.
It was a brief video message, but it surely meant the world to the students at the Salesian University Institute of Venice and Verona. The Catholic University's official broadcaster, Cube Radio, has put together an Advent reflection in an ecological key. Advent Green Dream runs from November 29th until Christmas Eve and draws inspiration from the Gospels and Pope Francis' encyclical Laudato Si. The Pope himself helped in the launch of the program, releasing a video message on Thursday.
Ringrazio I giovani dell'Istituto Universitario Salesiano in Cube Radio di Venezia.
I express my appreciation to the young people of the Salesian University Institute who are part of Cube Radio, he said, for preparing an Advent journey inspired by the Word of God for each Sunday and by the encyclical Laudato Si. He also invited other young people and netizens to get involved in preparing for a holy Christmas by spreading also through the social media accounts of Vatican News the Word of God and inviting them to care for our common home. Thanking all those involved in Advent Green Dream, the Pope concluded his message, as he often does, promising to pray for them and asking everyone for their prayers for him.
Grazie. Prego per voi e pregate per me.
The program takes listeners on a journey through Advent and includes daily inspiration drawn from 26 quotes from Laudato Si, along with images produced by students. Though Cube Radio broadcasts in Italian, this initiative also includes English language and Portuguese language versions, available on the Facebook page of Don Bosco Green Alliance. Father Nicola Ciacopini, the university's director, called the Advent Green Dream a message of hope, which aims to reach the ends of the earth in both the physical and digital realms. I'm Devin Watkins.
The Ethiopian Prime Minister said today he is launching the final phase of an offensive in the country's northern Tigray region. Abiy Ahmed made the announcement just hours after an ultimatum for Tigray forces to surrender expired. The government had given the Tigray People's Liberation Front militants 72 hours on Sunday to lay down their arms or face an assault on Mekelle, the regional capital of 500,000 people. Abiy accuses Tigrayan leaders of starting hostilities by attacking federal troops. The Tigray People's Liberation Front says his government has marginalized Tigrayans, who make up about 6% of Ethiopia's population.
And rights groups raise concerns for civilians caught up in military operations in which thousands are already believed to have died since fighting began on the 4th of November. Abiy has pledged to spare civilians and said authorities are distributing aid in areas under the control of the federal government in the Tigray region. 4 camps for displaced persons are reportedly being established and a humanitarian corridor is being opened. Nearly 43,000 Ethiopian refugees have fled over the border to Sudan, and Abiy, who won the Nobel Peace Prize last year for ending a long-running standoff with Eritrea, called on the people of Mekelle to disarm, stay at home, and stay away from military targets.
It's been 3 weeks since hostilities broke out in the Tigray region of Ethiopia.
I apologise for that. Meanwhile, the executive director of the UN Children's Agency, UNICEF, warned that children's lives and well-beings will be put at immediate risk with the escalation of the fighting. Lydia O'Kane has more.
It's been 3 weeks since hostilities broke out in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. In that short space of time, the humanitarian situation has rapidly deteriorated and the lives of thousands of people have been put at risk. Among those are some 250,000 children who live in Mekelle, a conflict hotspot. As unrest continues, the UN Children's Agency UNICEF is urging parties to the conflict in Ethiopia to spare children from the impact of hostilities in the Tigray region. In a statement, the executive director of the agency, Henrietta Fore, says that UNICEF is deeply alarmed that the two parties' threat of a further escalation in the fighting would put their lives and well-being at immediate risk. We call upon parties to the conflict, she says, to cease the fighting and reach a peaceful settlement. Humanitarian agencies should be allowed urgent, unimpeded and sustained access to all affected areas. The executive director also expresses her concern at the safety of hundreds of humanitarian workers who are still in Mekele and elsewhere across Tigray. We call upon all parties to the conflict to take all necessary measures to ensure their protection, she says. At present, some 2.3 million children in the Tigray region need humanitarian assistance and cannot be reached due to restricted access and the current breakdown in communications. UNICEF has expressed alarm at the rates of malnutrition in the region. Acute malnutrition increased by 1/3 between 2019 and 2020, mainly due to desert locust infestation and COVID-19. The Ethiopian Prime Minister announced a military offensive on November the 4th against the regional government in Tigray in response to an attack by Tigrayan forces, and since then, tens of thousands of people have fled to neighbouring Sudan. According to UNICEF, thousands of children, many without parents or relatives, are among those who have sought refuge in camps and registration centres and are at risk. Conditions for these children have been described as extremely difficult. I'm Lydia O'Kane.
The bishops of Germany are dedicating their annual day of prayer to Christians suffering persecution in Syria and Iraq. The day of prayer is observed every year on the 26th of December, the feast of St. Stephen, the first Christian martyr. Robin Gomes has the story.
Archbishop Ludwig Schick of Bamberg, president of the German Bishops' Commission for the Church Worldwide, expressed concern over the situation of Christians in Syria and Iraq. Even after the military victory over the Islamic State, he said, the faithful are still exposed to many dangers and persecution. The terror of the Islamic State, he pointed out, has destabilized the region in a long-term and dramatic way. The brutal violence of Islamists has forced many Christians to flee, but he noted at least one Christian minority has remained back. In the midst of ethnic, religious and political tensions, he said, the community faces a great challenge of finding its place in Syria destroyed by civil war and in Iraq marked by continuous instability. Archbishop Schick, who visited the two countries recently, said he was impressed by the courage and resilience of the local church and its faithful. Part of the essence of Christianity, he explained, is not to withdraw into oneself, but to reach out to all people in need of material and spiritual help and to spread hope and trust. Although the atrocities committed by Islamists have traumatized and upset many Christians in a lasting way, he noted the church in Syria and Iraq is convinced of the importance of its centuries-old existence in the Middle East. The church is aware of our call to assist all people, regardless of their religious affiliation, in the service of Christian charity, the German bishop's official said. I am Robin Gomes.
In the United States, the Supreme Court has blocked enforcement of an executive order by New York Governor Andrew Cuomo restricting attendance in houses of worship due to the COVID-19 emergency. Christopher Wells reports.
The Supreme Court of the United States on Wednesday night issued a decision forbidding the state of New York from enforcing an executive order by Governor Andrew Cuomo, which would have restricted attendance in houses of worship due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Cuomo's order limited the number of people allowed in religious buildings in areas particularly hard hit by the pandemic, so-called red and orange zones. The Diocese of Brooklyn and a Jewish organization, Agadah Israel of America, argued that the order discriminated against religious organizations in violation of the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Wednesday's order by the Supreme Court stood in contrast to earlier decisions in cases involving churches in California and Nevada. The New York case, like the other two, was decided by a 5-4 majority. On Wednesday, however, newly appointed Justice Amy Barrett's vote proved decisive in the court's decision to halt enforcement of the New York governor's order. Both the Diocese of Brooklyn and Agadah Israel had argued that the executive order was discriminatory as it singled out religious organizations for restrictions while allowing similar secular organizations to operate with fewer or no limitations. Agadah Israel had further argued that Governor Cuomo had specifically targeted Orthodox Jewish groups. The Supreme Court's order is unlikely to have immediate effect on the ground, as Cuomo had recently reclassified various zones in such a way that neither the diocese nor Agadah Israel is subject to the restrictions. However, the court's decision noted that the classification could be changed at any time, and so decided to grant the judicial relief requested. I'm Christopher Wells.
In Turkey, a court has handed life sentences to 337 military officers and others in one of the biggest trials linked to the country's 2016 coup attempt. Air Force pilots and army commanders were among the nearly 500 defendants accused of trying to overthrow President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. They allegedly directed the plot from air base near Ankara. Erdogan claims a US-based Muslim cleric masterminded the plot which led to the mass arrests. The accused denied any involvement in the attempted coup in July 2016 that killed 251 people and injured more than 2,000.
And finally, Diego Armando Maradona, who died on Wednesday at the age of just 60, leaves an unfillable void in the world of football. Amongst the many to pay tribute to his sports genius is his countryman, Pope Francis, who said he's praying for him. The Holy See Press Office director said the Pope was grieved to hear of Maradona's death and recalled his meetings with him. He revealed he was informed of his ill health and had been praying for him even before his death. James Blears has more on the legendary sportsman.
Winning the World Cup in 1986, kissing it, cradling it and holding it aloft in Mexico's giant Azteca Stadium was the zenith of Diego Maradona's career and the fitting summit of his life's work. His reason for being, doing, achieving and triumphing. Born in grinding poverty, Diego lifted himself up by his bootstraps, mesmerizing opponents and earning the respect of sports fans the world over. The ball seemed glued to his golden left foot. At his best, and his best was supreme, he had no equal. But like other geniuses, his craft and his brilliance was confined to one specific area, and he struggled hard in other aspects of his life, besieged with problems related to drugs and alcohol, which he never sought to excuse or hide, fighting them with all his might and making them public. But some battles cannot be won. Rather, it's the courageous way in which they're fought which makes the feat so remarkable and humbling. Diego met His Holiness, who's a fan, on a number of occasions, notably in 2014 prior to a charity match, presenting him with a famous number 10 shirt with Francisco emblazed upon it, and then again a year later in connection to the Pope's Scholars Occurrence worldwide charity for young people who are the hope of our world. His Holiness had been praying for Diego during his recent health problems and surgery to remove a brain clot, and now, in the hour of his death, no player will ever again capture the imagination like Diego Maradona, making hearts pound like crazy. He used his God-given gifts to their very fullest. Diego Maradona dies. Argentina and the entire world cries. For Vatican News, James Blears reporting.
That brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, and to hear this broadcast as a podcast, go to our web portal at www.vaticannews.va.
You can also catch the latest updates on our Facebook page or on Twitter. Our thanks go to Patrizio Ciprari in studio in the Vatican. I'm Linda Bordoni.
And I'm Father Benedict Mayaki.